There we go. Hey, how's it going?
Now we're live. I think we're having some
All right,
connection
technical
issues.
difficulties, always fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if that intro played or not, but we're here now. That's all that matters, right?
Yes. Yep.
How are you doing, John?
I'm well. I'm well. Hope everyone's doing well. They're hunkered down and all that, and doing all right, and enjoyed the Super Bowl, that great, wonderful contest that we all enjoy. So,
Yes, the Super Spreader Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl.
right. Yes, the hand egg competition. So, I enjoyed that a little bit. They actually had a very interesting broadcast for Australians only. You had two Americans trying to make cultural references to Australia, and they were saying things like, this is kind of reminiscent of the rivalry between England and Australia for the Ashes cricket competition. And you could clearly tell that they had been given speaker notes, but they were doing it for the Australian audience, so it was quite fun to listen to.
Oh man, yeah. Here in the States, we get a lot of those things wrong. I remember a couple of years ago there was an Olympics, and there was an advertiser that was using some imagery with like a bunch of giraffes, like assuming that like all of Africa has giraffes, and people were getting upset. So we're not good at those type of things. We should be more worldly people, but we're unfortunately not. But
That's all
I'm
right.
not much of a sports ball fanatic, so I didn't watch the game. I heard a team won, and
Yes,
that was good enough for
evidently.
me.
Yes.
Uh, 3 pointers were shot, something like that.
No. No, that is not how it works. There you go.
Goals were made.
Wow. All right.
Goal units were scored. It was a
Geez,
great
Ed, you're
event.
really showing your ability to cater to the technical audience here.
Is that it?
Yeah, something like that. I'm gonna turn on lights here so I can actually people can actually see my shiny face. There you go.
So we cover tech news on this show, not sports news, which is very fortunate for me because I know nothing of the sort. Um, my sports are played online as well, so if my competitiveness comes out in things like online gaming, but that's about it. If you want to talk
Mm.
Counter Strike or Star Wars Squadrons or any of those like competitive online games, then maybe we're good. But not so much the sports balls.
All right.
All right, we've got lots of links this week because we missed last week. I was a little under the weather last week. I can't even remember what happened, but I was like blah last week and couldn't
Mm.
do a show. So we've got a lot to cover. So we
Yes.
should get started. We've got more Visual Studio like releases something like every week it seems like.
Yeah.
But we've got a new release here, John.
Yeah. So I think the Visual Studio team needs to really be commended. They've been on this cadence for years now, and I think that it really speaks to the team's philosophy around shipping often, and they constantly put out releases, monthly releases for this thing, and so they've got version 1.53 now available. Offers just a subset of capabilities relative to the entire product, but innovations nonetheless. And these things are always nice to have and to see integrated within the product. Nothing major in this release. Some updates to the editor experience, some updates to things like guidelines around extensions, etc. But all in all, some nice features.
Yeah, it looks like they opened up the API for the tabs, which is kind of cool. So
Hmm.
you put badges up in the tabs and kind of customize those. It's
Fun.
pretty neat.
Yep.
Um, I haven't tried Notebook in Visual Studio Code.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looks
It's a bit of a different beast, but super powerful. I've seen some crazy demos with it.
something I've always wanted to try. I need to kick the tires on that. I'm not
Sure.
too fluent in Jupyter notebooks, but it looks
Yes.
like a cool way to like stage demos and stuff. I really need to sit down one day and like dig into that and see how it works.
Yes. So I think one of the things that I like is the some of the features that have been around Emmet for a while. Emmet is a great tool that should be installed. They've added some capabilities there. Just a variety of other things as well. So I think now they're kind of looking at the hard problems involving authors of extensions, etc. So there's an extension API, and there's things around how do you write these things well. So yeah, always a challenge.
So they've improved the performance of Emmet, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
They need to work on the Visual Studio Code plugin for that as well. It's all like bundled together in something that used to be called Web Essentials. I don't know if they at that one point took them all out and unbundled Web Essentials, and then I think they moved it all back in. So I need to check on that as well, but it'd be nice to have Emmet back in my editor.
So there you go.
Cake. We've got the Cake is a Lie 2.0, not 1.0.
Yeah, so this has been under development for a while. This is great. Cake is a wonderful build tool, super fast. We use it at Octopus, and we actually are a sponsor of the project. And so 1.0 is finally shipped, and congratulations to the team. Wonderful news. And I think that they've been working on this for a while now, and so it's great to see. And so, yeah, if you're looking for a build automation tool, Cake's a good one to take a look at.
I was trying to find the there it is, sponsors for this project. You said you're a sponsor, but they should list you.
Well, that's through the Open Collective. So if you go to that link,
okay, so
they do list
Open
the sponsors there, and they offer the ability to make contributions. So
there you are. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. We're trying to figure out the whole like sponsorship role in some of these things.
Sure.
Currently, we're sponsoring B-Unit, a Blazor testing library.
Yes.
So it's nice to be able to invest in these community tools and try to help out the community in that way. Where
so there's a variety of ways that people offer up sponsorships. Typically, the ones I've seen are through GitHub directly or through Open Collective. Open Collective, I like. You'll see a lot of projects listed there. So if you're an open source contributor or maintainer, consider putting a link there. You'd be surprised who's using your stuff and wants to give you some love. But those sponsorships really allow you to enable folks to basically build the software that they love and in a way that they love, which is open source. So Open Collective facilitates this. It's really easy to get set up. We sponsor a few projects this way. So definitely worth checking out.
I think it's important that we kind of shift the discussion back to software isn't just because it's open source doesn't necessarily mean it's free. As we all know, nothing in life is free. So that means if somebody's working on open source and they're not sponsored, they're not paid for it, then it's basically at the cost of their time, which that person's just donating to the community, which is nice to some extent. But then that burns people out pretty fast. So it's nice to be able to sponsor projects and get them off the ground like this. This is really good.
Yeah.
Homebrew.
Yeah. So I'm a Mac guy. You're a Windows guy. That's fine. Homebrew is basically a package manager for very popular one for Mac, used elsewhere. But in the 3.0 release, they've added support for M1 on the Apple platform. So this was a major initiative that they had to support, and so there was a build release for it that was available, and now they've made it official in their 3.0 bits. So good stuff. Homebrew is really the canonical way of getting anything on your Mac, and I like it a lot. Actually, it does the job really well.
So is this kind of like the equivalent to Chocolatey on Windows?
Yeah, you got it. So
very cool.
So you can search for anything there. You could search for NPM. You could search for a variety of other things, and we'll show you basically a listing of what those things are and how to get them. So
speaking of the M1, so you mentioned the M1 there in Homebrew.
Sure.
I thought this was interesting that there's been rumors going around for a while, and this one's starting to consolidate, it looks like. So Apple has rumored to have a VR headset that costs nearly $3,000, but has an HK or 8K display. The dozen cameras I could care less about, but this 8K display sounds really interesting. And I don't know if that's 8K per eye or 8K total. So it's still, if it's 8K, it's 4K per eye. That's pretty high definition for anything VR related these days. I can't remember what the Oculus is. It's a little bit above HD, so it's like 2046 or something. It's a very odd resolution because it's per eye. So it's decent, but you still get kind of that screen door effect because you're magnifying that thing on your face. So I was talking, or you were talking about the M1 a couple shows back, and I said one of the benefits of that M1 is it is an ARM processor with a really high performance graphics processor embedded in it. And if this is true, I would say there's some version of that GPU that Apple's been putting in these last gen devices that they've been putting out, like the M1 notebooks and the Mac Mini, because it's low power, high performance graphics, and that's what they need for this type of thing. And 3K is a bit pricey. I think 3K is really expensive considering the Quest 2 is 10% of that price, right? But the Quest, it does okay on its own, but you really need a PC to play anything really worthwhile. I mean, there's lots of fun games, they're arcadey style games, but the really, really good stuff is on the PC, like Alex and Star Wars and all that type of stuff. So if you can play for $3,000 without a PC and it's PC quality, I'd say the 3K is worth it. Where the Oculus, what's nice is you get for $300 you can play without a PC. They're fun games. They're the graphics quality is not that impressive, but if you attach it to a PC, then you get you can upgrade. It's got a lot of lifespan in that device because you can just connect it to something more powerful and change that piece of the equipment out. So that's it's an interesting situation developing anyway on the Mac front.
Couldn't care less. Sorry. Couldn't care less. This is the easy bake oven from Fisher Price to me. All this stuff's going to end up in the ocean. This is horrific, I think. Not the fact that you guys are innovating this way, but it's just the amount of plastic that's created. I don't see why people would want this. I mean, the only time I can ever see a situation where this will help is if you're on the battlefield or you're in an environment that requires AR. As far as VR is concerned, honestly, go outside. Seriously. Get outside, get some vitamin D, play with your kids. Come on. What are we doing?
But I can't fly a TIE fighter in
I don't
my
care.
backyard.
Go fly a propeller plane. You'll find it 10 times more interesting. God.
Yeah, I don't know. I've flown little wind-up planes.
Stop
not
hacking
quite
my
the same
face.
thing.
I don't like this.
I've spent a pretty considerable amount of time in VR since the pandemic, and it's pretty impressive, some of the games that are coming out of it.
Okay.
They've got some really interesting takes on not only what you can do with UI or UX in that realm, but just the creative institutions that are coming out of it.
Fair enough.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Look, I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, right? Years from now when, Twitch doesn't exist and we're all sitting in rubble and, climate's completely changed, etc. I'm sure this will be awesome because we'll be able to teleport ourselves back to a time when, CO2 levels were low, etc. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see much usefulness for this. I've seen all the use cases. Doctors can wear them and do surgery remotely, and soldiers can fight with them, and people fixing pipelines can know where the parts are. And I'm like, yeah, I get all that, but for the average consumer sitting in their office, I don't see why this is what I want. I mean,
It's a,
if I want an experience, if I want reality, I'll go get reality outside. You know, there's this thing. It's like the resolution outside is amazing, and there's no battery required. And
I heard it's
you know,
HD.
yeah. Anyways, I've made this
Now,
argument before. I'll stop.
The guy preaching go outside used to live in Canada where it was too cold to go outside and moved to another country, whereas
Yeah, it's
some
awesome.
of us have to live somewhere cold.
Hey,
It's
I
like
used to go
2
outside all the
degrees
time, play ice
outside, man.
hockey. Yeah,
It's
well,
like 2 degrees C outside, I think, right now. It's
All right.
very cold.
that's
We
balmy.
have snow on the ground.
2
I'm
degrees
not-
is
I'm
nice.
not going outside.
It's above freezing, dude.
If it's not
above freezing.
74 to 76 degrees, I don't belong out
Come
there.
on,
So
come on. What are we talking about here? Come on. Can
we
this
do
simulate the
play,
weather? Can this make you cold? No. So
I do play with the kids, by the way.
You just look-
this
I've
has been
seen-
a fun device to play with the kids. You project like the
I know.
VR up on the television, and we have battles with the what's it called, Beat Saber, which is
All right.
amazing exercise. Amazing exercise. Architecture MD, is this like a doctor thing? What is it?
this is not a doctor thing. This is basically a suggestion that if you're running an open source project, in addition to having the README file and the contributing file, you should also have a markdown file which is labeled architecture. The reason for this is simple. When people are wanting to contribute to a project, they often have a lot of questions like, where do I start? How is this thing built? You know, what are the major parts and pieces I need to understand in order to contribute, etc. So this was a suggestion made a couple days ago that in addition to those 2 files, you should have this one that explains all that. And I think it's a fantastic suggestion because oftentimes you'll go, you know, to ask questions, etc., as to what this might, you know, what does a code base look like? Where can I get started? If I want to work on the VR part of the code, where do I start? And so this is basically a way of describing that. And there's an example at the bottom which kind of articulates that. But basically, these are suggestions of what you should have in your open source projects.
Here, Curious Drive has your markdown architecture markdown file. This is what John Bristow's would say.
That's right. Get outside. Get outside.
That was in
true.
the context of
Hey, until our brains are
that's
sitting in
still-
vats of liquid and we're getting all our sensory inputs that way, you still have a body to maintain. So make sure you get
See-
outside, get some exercise.
You're making the assumption that hasn't happened already, John. You don't know. You just,
That's right. That's
you
right.
don't know. You couldn't know.
Yeah. Well, until then, I'll ignore. What did Cypher say? Ignorance is bliss in that movie. So there you go.
Absolutely. How SpaceX obliterates its competitors and redefines space travel.
Alex Yates from DLM Consultants wrote this article for us. It's fantastic. This is a wonderful article that talks about, basically gives you the approach that SpaceX has taken towards targeting space flight, and then applies those principles basically, or what does this have to do with DevOps basically, and so applies those principles in the same realm. And if you take a look, it's amazing to watch because, you know, to be honest, I mean, we're going through right now, people are going to look back and say, because space flight is going to be common. It will be. You know, maybe not tomorrow, but certainly years from now, possibly decades. It's going to be very common. Trips to the moon, etc. That's all going to be standard. But we're living through the experience of watching the Wright brothers get it, pardon the pun, get it right or get it correct. And so SpaceX and others are now in the midst of making this a reality. And so software is approached in the same way, where you basically are doing stuff. Sometimes you're doing things for the first time ever, and you're having to experiment, and you're having to fail, and you're having to do it again, and then etc. So what Alex does in this article is basically articulate, you know, how we're approaching this problem. What are some of the sort of ways in which we're going about it? It's a great read. It's a wonderful read that talks a little bit about this. If you don't know the history of SpaceX or what NASA has done or what some of the goals are, you know, he ties it all together at the end, but basically, you know, basically draws out why we do DevOps, why it's important, what are some of the factors that go into it, and then, you know, talks about basically like watching rockets fail is like watching software crash. So, you know, it's going to happen, and you can't lose your mind over it, and it's going to happen, and it's okay.
I'll believe the regular space travel, like we do air travel thing when I see it. We've been promised this since I was in diapers, and
I
it's
think we were promised flying cars, and that's an entirely different thing altogether. Rockets, you know, flying cars have a real big problem, which is the atmosphere is way too thick to facilitate, you know, this sort of, unless we have gravitrons or something like that. It's you just the friction involved in the atmosphere is too great. Whereas if once you get out into space, the problem we have with space is obviously radiation and other things like that. But you know, getting a rocket off the planet, I think we're getting that kind of nailed now. And then now it's like, okay, now where? Now where do we go? The problem with after that is like it takes a while to get anywhere. So, but
I remember seeing all these videos like in the 50s, you know, the videos of the future.
Yes, I know.
You've got
looking good, Johnny.
Yeah, kids are just, you know, they're flying off to space for school.
Yes,
and they're just kind of those pipe dream videos. I love those videos, but when I hear space travel is going to be like a regular like thing that normal people do, I always go, yeah.
It will be. Listen, there's those four people that are going up to the space station soon. They paid $10 million each to go up there. So it will start off small. I think what will be really cool is when we start doing flights to the moon. I think that will be fantastic. That will be our first foray. And then after that, you know, it's like Columbus. We're going to make a big sort of voyage across the heavens over to Mars and set up a colony there. And then it's like, all right, let's get going. And then we start colonizing the solar system. So.
Or you could put on a VR headset and do it today.
Oh, God. All right, whatever. Yeah, how do you think that would go over? Like, listen, Columbus, don't go over to the North America. Like, don't try and find India. Just put on this helmet and imagine, you know, you're in India and you've found the route to get you there quickly, etc. No.
Hey, why watch Star Wars when you can play it?
All right, fine.
All right. This is a set of videos.
Seth's been busy.
Yeah, Seth has been busy. He created these. I saw him on Twitter tweeting about this. I thought I'd share it with everybody.
Okay.
So Microsoft has this Learn platform that they have a lot of videos on, and Seth came out with a series for machine learning. And if you don't know who Seth is, he used to be on Channel 9, and he started focusing on well, I want to say focusing his career on, but his career actually started in AI. He's refocused after being on Channel 9 for a while into doing machine learning again. And it's been a few years. He's really jumped head over into machine learning. He's got some videos out here on the Microsoft Learn channel. I've seen him at Build and speaking at conferences. He's a fantastic speaker on machine learning. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in ML, give.
There you go. Now you're back.
Oh, did we pop out? I was just saying.
Yeah, you did a Cylon thing there. So
Seth has amazing materials out there. Follow him on Twitter and make sure you check out his videos that are up on the Azure portal in Microsoft Learn. So lots of good content coming out of Microsoft lately. And when you have folks like this, which Microsoft has a bunch of, when they hired up a lot of the influencer community and developer advocates, I mean, you're going to have good content like this coming out, right? I say that, but Seth's been there a lot longer than those folks were hired, but there's a lot of really good people out there at the Microsoft campus. What is this by VentureBeat, John? This is one of your articles, I believe.
No, this is not.
Oh wait, no, this is mine. It's this ad this ad needs to go. It's getting in my way.
Okay.
Seeing the headline. Cloud could do better. Okay. I don't know how to pronounce this. Zaraz?
Zaraz, I guess.
So
Zaraz, I guess.
Old is new again, John. We've been down these roads before.
Well, it's a palindrome, so that helps.
So yeah, server-side rendering was the thing for quite a long period of time, and I would argue still is. There's a lot of front-end frameworks that are rendered on the client, but I still think the majority of the web is still rendered server-side. You've got piles and piles of WordPress sites that are out there. I think WordPress is still dominating things pretty hard. But with that said, this is a tool that's taking those client-side rendered technologies like Vue, React, Angular, and it's moving some of the kind of grunt work that happens with the client side off to the server. So, you have like Google Analytics and all of those type of third-party services that get, batched into any customer-facing website these days. This kind of puts all of those things in the cloud and runs them server-side. So it takes a lot of the overhead of all those different JavaScript modules off of your clients. And it does this through some sort of magic. You can imagine like a technology similar to the server-side Blazor. The way it renders that, it acts like kind of like a thin client. Your browser does. So they're kind of like offloading all of these JavaScript computationally heavy third-party tools, and they kind of connect to your browser like it's a thin client and give you the results of these things.
It's just marketing. This is because they provide a tool to configure this stuff to work on their end, and then you reference a JavaScript file to do that. But it's just marketing spin. It's not really one line of code. It's many lines of code, but it just happens to be one line which is referenced. So
yeah, these are all very like marketing heavy tools as well. So this is like your Google Analytics, your Facebook APIs, and all those sort of things. So they're doing all this in a they're taking a lot of security risks here on themselves. And processing these things server side.
I am skeptical about their claims for it to be 40% faster. Like, what is faster, right? Like, because you're taking a network hit, and we all know that when you hit the network, your orders of magnitude in terms of latency, time to interactive. Even that is a bit skeptical because time to first paint, etc. There's so many factors involved. I think that I don't know. I don't buy it. I need to know a little bit more about this. And I think that when you start traversing networks, things get a bit gnarly. And I don't know. So
if you don't believe it, John, you could download their very own analyzer tool that'll.
No, I'm not doing that. Thanks, but no, I'm not doing that.
I mean,
I think what matters here is if people treat this rather than a marketing exercise, they treat it as a look. The reason, here's how we solved the problem, and you explain it from an architecture perspective, and you also provide evidence of here's why these things occur. And I think what happens is people tend to gloss over that, like, everyone sucks at writing these things, and we're going to make it 40% faster. I'm like, okay, hang on a second. You're not dealing with people who are just chucking stuff up against the wall. You're dealing with developers who have to live and breathe in the code. So show us the network trace that demonstrates that this is 40% faster, right? Tell us what you're doing from an architecture perspective. Now, I concede that this is VentureBeat, so they're going to give the high-level strokes here, but it would be interesting to see kind of how they're solving this problem, because the reality is nothing prevents you from solving this problem in similar ways, using a CDN or using other mechanisms. You can use any combination of technologies to do yourself. I think what they've done is they've just provided a means for wiring the stuff up. I really sound angry. I don't know why I sound so angry today. It's like, very I'm skeptical. I apologize to Zaraz. Sorry, I can't even pronounce it. Zaraz.
Nobody can.
I apologize.
It's all good.
But I think the fault here lies with the article that's written. They're pitching it as just one line of code will make it all work. I'm like, that's not the reality.
Well,
You can't. Yeah.
To play on your side of the fence, John, they probably wrote the article for VentureBeat.
Okay.
Or
whatever.
You know how these things go. It's like paid advertising probably.
Okay.
But I thought it was interesting how we take, we have things like ASP.NET, MVC, and Razor, and we render it all on the server and send it all to the client.
Sure.
And then these new flavor of the week things show up and start doing rendering on the client, and everybody thinks it's the new hotness, and we all move to the client. And now we're like, oh, this is slow. We need to start moving some stuff back. And then you kind of get this pendulum that swings back and forth. We do this with all technologies, but
that happens because
people an interesting conversation starter.
All that stuff happens because people continue to write bad code. And I think once you start writing code that's well tested and you think about all the problems involved, the need for utilizing these frameworks starts to go away. But at the same time, writing good code is difficult. So I understand the need for writing these things. So you're in this kind of virtuous cycle of, I've got bad code, I need to make it go faster. Here's a service that make it work. And it's like, all right, well, if I'd written it properly the first time, So there's a show in, I don't know if it's in the States, but it's Homes on Homes. Mike's Homes is this builder. And he's got this phrase, which is tear it all down. So he's a builder, and he goes into these bad construction jobs that have gone south, and he's like, yeah, this is wrong. And his catchphrase is just tear it all down, basically. And so we do the same thing in software. It's like, this is garbage, tear it all down. But, the problem with that is that sometimes people tear it all down for the wrong reasons. And but anyways, a solution like this, if it helps, great.
Yeah, it goes back to like the jQuery conversation.
The jQuery. What is with the jQuery?
What's wrong with jQuery? What's wrong with it? It works.
I am using the jQuery.
It works fine. And it's like people are like, "Oh, it's terrible. You should see this code base." It's like, no, somebody wrote terrible code. It's not jQuery's fault.
No. I mean, jQuery was written a long time ago as well, when browsers had a lot of like cracks in them, basically, and you're just covering it with spackle, So
it went from these sites are terrible because they're jQuery to these sites are terrible because they're Angular. It's like, now you just have the same people writing the same bad code and just different frameworks.
Yeah.
We're off on a tangent again.
Sure.
Microsoft had some really big news they unveiled, and
Viva.
I'm waiting to hear John torpedo this one.
Sure. Oh, God, I'm such a curmudgeon. Sorry. I apologize.
So this one, no, I'd really actually love to hear your take on it, because I've yet to figure out what the heck it actually does. Besides, it's more Teams, and they're just calling it something else. This is Microsoft Graph and Teams, and I don't quite understand where the dividing line is, where the new product starts.
Just scroll up a bit. I'm going to quickly read this. That introducing Viva. You gotta get to like the thesis statement, basically. Okay, so it says right in the middle, to start, Microsoft Viva will introduce 4 modules: Viva Connections, Viva Insights, Viva Learning, and Viva Topics, with more on the way. I'll walk you through each one. Okay, Viva Connections. This sounds like rebranding of Graph, but provides a single entry point for employee engagement. And communication. You can think of it as a gateway to your digital workplace. Okay, whatever. It's built on 365, like SharePoint. Okay, whatever. I think this is probably using a combination of Microsoft's, what do they call them again? They're like widget library, things like that. Anyways, scroll down. Viva Insights. This sounds like Graph as well.
It does, doesn't it?
Okay, so this is that stuff that I think some people found some contentious thing. Like, it gives you insights into what your employees are doing. I thought they. There was I remember reading something online where people had. Yeah, something like that. People were finding sort of problems with it, but whatever. Like, meaning, like, I don't want my manager to know that I'm, staring at a blinking cursor for 10 hours a day. But
you could like work on a spreadsheet and not share it to your team, and I think it would still, like, if it was in your cloud, your Office 365 storage, Like
Okay.
Delve would go in there and discover it and like report things on their like AI driven
Right.
feed. And it'd be like, well, John's been working on his stock portfolio .xls today, and it's like, oh,
Sure.
that was my private stocks. I meant to put that on my drive. Oops.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that happening. But yeah, this looks like Delve. This looks like Microsoft Graph. This might be a new segment though. Like John Bristowe reads C-level marketing materials live on the air. That would be
Okay.
a fun segment, I think.
You know what else they're doing?
Like translate these C staff memos
Yeah.
to normal people terms, to technology.
It looks
terms.
like it looks like learning is, you know, resources from third parties like Pluralsight, and then topics is contextualizing. It's kind of like a meta level organizing teams content. That's what it looks like to me. Anyways,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
So this looks very like Teams integrated.
Yes.
It looks very much like rebranding of a lot of things they already have. So I was
For sure.
having a hard time. Like I was watching Satya on, I think it was like Bloomberg or something, introducing this thing, and I was
Yes.
like, I was trying to figure it out. I was like, this is still just Teams and Microsoft Graph, but it's got a new name, I guess. So we'll have to see how it evolves.
Yeah.
But it's basically Office 365 to me. It's all O365. Maybe it's a new SKU for more stuff to add on. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, I heard about this Octopus deploy thing.
Yes, sorry about that. Another link
No,
from us, but
perfect.
we had some news, and we're covering 2 weeks of content. So, we've shipped the Terraform provider for Octopus deploy, and this is a high-level blog post covering that. So, Terraform, for those who don't know, tool that allows you to manage and configure infrastructure using a configuration language, and basically, once you have a provider for a particular product, it allows you to stand up, tear down that infrastructure very quickly and easily using a CLI. And so this is a blog post that covers what we built. That's it.
Very nice.
Yep.
Good stuff, John. We talked about tracing, I think, last week. So, or not last week, but the week before. So we've got kind of a follow-up here, I think. Tracing I/O in .NET Core.
Yeah, so there's a project called Open Telemetry. It's that first link you see there, which basically provides a generalized framework for doing, telemetry within your apps, and it's cross-platform and cross-language, etc. So basically, it uses as the basis here for tracing into apps, and then talking about the innovations that have been done in .NET Core to facilitate some of that. Tracing infrastructure has been a part of .NET and a lot of other frameworks for a long time. In fact, it's actually quite surprising to see how deep it goes in some cases. I remember back in the day doing trace statements within my .NET 1 applications and seeing them show up in WinTrace and other System32 apps, for example, back in the day. And it's actually the fact that these tracing mechanisms permeate down to the OS level, and just by adding some of these statements, it will actually propagate down to that level and then basically broadcast from there. But if you're doing anything in terms of .NET, there are a variety of facilities available in .NET Core to facilitate that. And then Jaeger is a tool that allows you to capture and view a lot of those statements. So this was a summary of kind of what's going on there and how you can facilitate better tracing with your apps. Everything starts with printf and then eventually evolves into more of a structured framework, which is actually a nice segue to Seek, which is the next link that I included. So Seek is a product that we use at Octopus. It's a wonderful product and basically allows you to capture a lot of that information, but it's more structured. So in this case, you can perform a variety of SQL queries, query-like queries against your statements and view when things occurred, how they occurred, priorities, a variety of sort of categorization around those statements. And so what this link is basically a cheat sheet of what are some of the more powerful functions, what are some of the queries that you'll commonly hit, etc., etc. And so if you're using a tool like Seek, which I would recommend strongly, these are some of the things that will help.
I like that they have a very like visual, heavily branded version of it, and they also put on GitHub an accessible kind of Word
Sure.
document.
Yeah, the little markdown version of it.
Markdown
Yep.
document, but it's all text. I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Text document.
So Seek's a great little tool. Not even little, but it's a great tool if you're doing any sort of structured tracing within your apps.
Yeah, we've shown it I think a few times on the show. I think it's neat the way it takes all these different logging outputs and lets you scan through them with like a query language, and they're not structured or strongly typed data. They're just text data, and it's able to kind of parse through all that. It's really cool stuff.
Right.
Let's see here. Continuous delivery makes JVM and JIT an anti-pattern.
Yeah, so a common scenario you see with these languages today is just-in-time compilation. And so the argument is that, continuous delivery makes that concept of just-in-time an anti-pattern. The reason why is because you're spinning up containers and they're only living for, say, a handful of minutes. And then if you're spending most of your time JITting code, you're really negating the benefits of doing continuous delivery. And so the two are in contention in some respects because one is waiting for the other, or the benefit of one is dependent upon the other. And so this is a well-known, reality of some of these languages like Java, like C#. But the reality is also that our the sort of way in which we deploy software is also changing. So we're highly containerizing our application deployments, and as a result, and also the lifespan of these containers is very short. So, it's something to consider.
Yeah, this is a conversation that comes up a lot with Blazor too on the client side. We're working on just in time, and we've got the .NET runtime running in the browser and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how some of this stuff applies to that world as well.
I think ultimately the decision comes down to, how is it that you're deploying your software? Why is it that you're choosing to deploy it in a continuous manner? And then looking at scenarios around testing and things of that nature. So you've got to do what makes you happy. But ultimately what gets shipped out at some point is going to be either containerized or not. And so you're going to have to obviously mitigate those scenarios.
So this last one we've got here. I almost got fired for choosing React in our enterprise app.
Yeah, this is more of an anecdote. So this is a story about a gentleman here who basically came from .NET/Angular world and decided to choose React for a variety of good reasons. But when it came to knowing the team that was working on the application and a manager kind of seeing the velocity decrease as the company went ahead, basically kind of said that was a poor decision on his part. I don't know if you would get fired for choosing a framework like React. React is great, and so is Angular. And I think that you choose one of the two. It really depends on the characteristics that are non-technical. The hardest problems to solve in our industry are the non-technical ones. And so this speaks to the developers on your team, the history, the expectations, their experience, etc. And so basically he's just sharing here some of the anecdotes that came with choosing React as opposed to Angular. You can see some of the quotes here that people were having when looking at frameworks. And I think it really does speak to people's sort of resistance to things that are new, right? So basically, React does take you if you're coming from a .NET or Angular background, it does take you kicking and screaming into a more functional basis where you have different ways of doing things in the React world. Having done both, I don't really see, I see benefits of one, but I also see benefits of the other, and I think that, what you have to be is flexible. And, arguments of being a polyglot, I think kind of speak true here. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things that, but I think in this case, if you're going to make a decision from an architecture perspective, you really need to take into it. You can't look at it from a technology purist perspective. You've got to take into account your team And I think that's the advice here is don't just pick technology for technology's sake. Make sure that you know the capabilities of your team. Make sure you understand the culture of your organization before making that choice.
Agreed. Yeah. We were talking about this on another show we did, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. We've done a lot of streams lately, but we were doing. Oh, I remember what it was. We had David Pine from Microsoft Docs on Code It Live, and we were taking some of the concepts that came in .NET or in C#9 and applying those to some code, and people were asking, which pattern was better, the one that was used in C#7 and 8 or this new C#9 stuff. And my response was, whatever your team is using is the best way to go.
That's right.
Because you don't want to be that guy that's writing this, weird functional code or whatever it is that's not the norm around your office.
Yeah.
And some of it, I don't know. This paragraph makes me curious as to either is this the norm of the stereotype of .NET developers?
No. What he's saying is this is what happened. So we had .NET developers who have their own set of expectations joining the team, and this is the result of that. He's not saying all .NET developers are like that.
Yeah. But I mean, this team seems to be very highly opinionated on using their tools or no tools.
Sure.
But, it's like they don't even try new things at all here. It's like, how can I run this using Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code? It's like, that's
understood.
not really that hard. Open it, install a plugin or two, and it's good to go.
I'm old enough to have experienced this myself, where you get members of the team who resist because it's not what they're used to, and they aren't willing to look at alternatives. And I think that's where as a manager you have to provide feedback. You have to say, listen, can I give you some feedback? When you resist without trying, it's like telling a kid, try this food, you might like it. And we have a policy within our family. It's like, listen, you can't say no. You have to try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. But you have to try it. You can't say no without trying it. And so the same thing can be said about, development teams. It's like you can't resist new ideas, new architectures, etc. Ideas about those things without trying them first, which speaks to prototyping and speaks to, a variety of things. But I think that I've experienced this myself. And that's the thing. You can go the other way as well. There's a spectrum of this, right? You got the folks who don't want to do anything, and then you got the folks who want to try the new hotness, and they're basically angry that no one else wants to, adopt .NET 5, or they don't want to do functional programming or TDD or whatever, And so there's like everything in life, what's required is a balance. I've seen it myself. I've been that guy. I've been in my early 20s. I was arrogant. I was like, we got to be doing this, and why can't anyone else see the light, sort of thing. And it's realize, listen, people have families, people have jobs outside the home, like they're coaching or whatever. They don't have the time to spend doing all this stuff. I think what happens there is you've got to be effective in terms of your leadership and show people, hey, there could be a better way. Let's try it, And I think if people have that open attitude, then I think it speaks better to the team sort of synergy, so to speak. Sorry, there's a term I didn't want to bring out, but there you go.
The one that always surprises me is folks that want to develop for a platform but don't want to learn the platform. It's like all the stuff they're talking about in this React article is basically just web stuff. I mean, it's web stuff. Just because you're a .NET developer doesn't mean that the web is different for you than it is for anybody else.
No.
And this is something that I think Blazor devs have had a hard time coming to terms with. And they're like, oh, Blazor, I can run .NET on the client now. And it's like, yeah, you still need to know HTML and CSS.
Sure, HTTP, verbs, all that sort of stuff, semantics. And
you can't come at it and expect to not know how HTML standards are and tags work and what the attributes are, how they're applied, and how the DOM renders things. Those are all just web things. So when I see something like React, it's just the web to me. I could easily adapt to doing a React app if I, put my mind to it. But we've got developers that are going to different platforms, and web developers do this a lot as well. We go to like something like a mobile environment. It's like, okay, I want to use CSS and HTML to do mobile layouts, and it's like,
Yeah.
No, you don't. That's not how this works over here.
Yeah, I mean, I get it at one point because this stuff's hard enough. And then you find a solution, and you think, oh, wicked, I understand it, right? And then it doesn't work elsewhere, and you're like, oh, so it's hard. I mean, you've got contentious issues, right? You want to use something that you want to get the job done. Ultimately, is the ultimate goal. But at the same time, it's like, this is hard enough understanding this stuff. And if it's like, I read an article, I get it, and it works on this one environment, but doesn't work elsewhere, it's a non-starter. It's frustrating. I've been there. It's like, why? Oh, you mean I can't do this thing on the thing? And it's like, no, you can't. Okay, whatever. Got to find a workaround.
We go down these rabbit holes of building this gigantic black box to put everything in that's going to write once and suck everywhere. And we put all of our bits in there, and then when something breaks, we don't know how to fix it anymore.
Yeah, I've got two catchphrases I've used commonly with people who enter the industry. It's like, to be successful in this industry and to go home at night in a peaceful state, you just got to kill that part of your soul that isn't dead yet. And then the second one is that basically, whenever faced with a problem, we do as God intended. We hack. So, if you understand that no solution's perfect and that people are flawed, you'll be fine. And, you got to continually learn. That's the other one.
I think we'll end on that note, John. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Eat Sleep Code, and we'll be back next week. We have all sorts of shows coming up here this week. We're doing a Valentine's special. We picked some teammates at
what did you get me?
We picked some teammates to do some live coding challenges with, and those live coding challenges are coming up Thursday and Friday. I'll be on Wednesday doing some prep work for that, and we have TJ as well coming on to do some of his prep work, I think, on Wednesday afternoon. So I'll be doing some Blazor stuff. I think he's doing some React stuff. So just hit the follow button. It's the easiest way to figure out what's happening here on the channel. Like I said, we've got all kinds of streaming coming all week long. So tune in.
Sweet.
And John, you have a good afternoon, my friend.
You too. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.